There are not many moments in history that can be described as significant turning points. We can count them on our fingertips. Napoleon's European conquest is very well known and also one of them, but his Egyptian conquest is often ignored. So, why not share this hidden gem of a story with you? Stick with us until the end, as we are going to discuss Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion of Egypt. Well, it was one of the moments that decisively changed the course of Egypt's future. These monumental moments usually become major subjects when we look back at history. Napoleon aimed to strengthen France's trade routes and block England's access to India when he controlled the eastern Mediterranean. Initially, he was successful in his objective, but for various reasons, he could not hold Egypt for a considerable time. He was driven out by the Anglo-Ottoman forces in only 3 years. Besides, Napoleon had a more pressing matter in Europe at the time, where he saw far more success. Even though his European conquests were very successful, his Egyptian campaign significantly impacted world history. In just 3 years of French occupation, the political landscape of the Middle East changed significantly. Militarily, Egypt was a failed expedition, but the scientific and political aspects of this mission were successful beyond imagination. By the end of the 18th century, France aimed to conquer Egypt. Controlling Egypt would provide France with a base to advance in the Mediterranean. At war with Britain, France intended to undermine its opponent's supremacy of the seas and its trading routes with India. Napoleon Bonaparte, an aspirational Corsican general, was tasked with the mission. He was well known for his exploits in Italy and led French forces to Egypt in 1798 to battle the local tyrants. They were known as the Mamluks and ruled the region of North Africa, which had been a province of the Ottoman Empire. The expedition's primary goal was military, but it also had a secondary purpose of gathering scientific and historical data on Egypt, which many French people thought was an old civilization comparable to ancient Greece and Rome. In addition to 35,000 soldiers, more than 160 academics and artists visited Egypt in 1798. This organization, formerly called the Commission of the Sciences and Arts of Egypt, would ultimately contribute more to history than the French combatants. Their meticulous research, done over a long period, would give rise to the discipline of Egyptology in Europe and shed light on the history of the vast civilization that had governed the Nile region for millennia. Egypt's potential for trade and agriculture and its geopolitical significance to the Anglo-French conflict were also reasons France sought control of the country. French traders handled the majority of European trade with Egypt in the 18th century. Egypt served as a supply of food and raw materials for the French as well. In terms of strategy, French influence over Egypt might be used to jeopardize British business interests in the area and obstruct Britain's land route to India. The French forces invaded Alexandria in early July 1798 and swiftly conquered it. Following their victory at the Battle of the Pyramids, also known as the Battle of Invade, French troops pushed on Cairo and seized the city on July 21. Napoleon was in a difficult situation in Egypt, though. Only the Delta and Cairo were under French administration. The Mamluks and Bedouins dominated Upper Egypt. Britain and the Ottoman Authority also joined forces to defeat Napoleon and expel him from Egypt. Napoleon's troops in Egypt were cut off on August 1, 1798, when the British fleet destroyed the French ships as they were at anchor at Abu Qir. On October 21, Cairo civilians rioted against the French, whom they saw as foreigners occupying their country rather than liberators. The Al-Azhar Mosque served as the focal point of the uprising, which had both a religious and a national aspect. Its leaders were the ulama, academics with a background in religion who Napoleon had hoped would join the French cause. During this time, the general populace started to consider the ulama moral and political authorities. Napoleon invaded Syria to prevent an Ottoman invasion, but his forces could not capture Acre in Palestine and withdraw on May 20, 1799. Napoleon secretly departed for France from Egypt on August 22 with a tiny group, leaving his troops and General Jean-Baptiste Kleber in charge. Kleber was forced to serve as the army's demoralized commander-in-chief with a bankrupt purse. Securing the evacuation of his soldiers to France was his top concern. Kleber was compelled to engage in combat after Britain rejected the evacuation plan. General Abdullah Jacques Menou, a French converted to Islam, assumed military command when Kleber was killed by a Syrian. An Anglo-Ottoman invasion army eventually put an end to the occupation. On June 18, 1801, the French military in Cairo submitted, and on September 3, Menou himself surrendered in Alexandria. The final French forces left the country at the end of September 1801. According to historian Afaf Lutfi al-Sayed Marsad, despite assertions to the contrary, the 3-year French occupation was not extended to impact Egypt significantly. Its most significant internal impact on Egypt was the Mamluks' quick fall from power. To be honest, Napoleon's military invasion of Egypt was almost a complete failure. He lost men left, right, and center. Although he conquered Alexandria, Cairo, and some neighboring areas, he needed more men to conquer enough Egypt to rule the country without any significant hiccups. Yes, it was a failed military invasion. Still, the scientific mission of Egypt's attack was so successful that it changed not only the Muslim world but also the thinking of the European world about Muslim countries. We discussed the military invasion, and now it's time to discuss the scientific aspects of the mission. In striking contrast to the military mission's failure, the scientific mission was a tremendous success. Its numerous participants were at the beginning of their careers, led by 2 seasoned researchers, Gaspard Monge and chemist Claude Louis Berthollet, both of whom served with Napoleon in Italy. Monge and Napoleon were chosen as the Institute of Egypt's president and vice president, respectively in August 1798 in Cairo. The institute was divided into 4 divisions: political economy, natural history and science, literature, and the fine arts, and mathematics. According to the institute's founding act, its mission was to research Egypt's nature, economy, and history, as well as to advance the Enlightenment's ideals there and support the Egyptian government. French academics were initially assigned to the institute's Cairo headquarters, but as time went on, other researchers were sent out to different locations around Egypt to carry out their duties. One of the group's members, Dominique Vivant Denon, was an aristocrat, a diplomat, a libertine novelist, and a skilled painter. He had frequently visited Josephine de Beauharnais, who would eventually become Napoleon's first wife, in her salons while he was still in France. Denon followed General de Saix to Upper Egypt after being persuaded by Napoleon to join the Egyptian expedition. While there, he sketched and recorded information on various pharaonic sites in the area. Denon returned to Paris with Napoleon in 1799 and started writing a book about his experiences in Egypt. Following Denon's return from Upper Egypt in 1799, Napoleon dispatched additional researchers to the area to conduct further research on Egyptian artifacts. The French researchers were able to operate in relative safety despite the military unrest because they were accompanied by each monument and guarded while taking exams. The researchers meticulously observed and measured everything, took copious notes, and gathered a variety of artifacts. The impact the French invasion had on Europe was its major consequence. The Anglo-French battle for dominance in the Middle East and the British entry into the Mediterranean were both launched by Napoleon's invasion, which showed the Middle East as a region of enormous strategic importance to the European powers. The French invasion of Egypt also significantly impacted France because the publishing of Description of Egypt recorded the conclusions of the professors and scientists who accompanied Napoleon to Egypt. This book served as the starting point for contemporary studies of Egypt's history, society, and economy. The description of Egypt's content is broken down into 3 main categories: antiquities, natural history, and the present state, with massive amounts of text and pictures in each. The work's historical portion, which makes up more than half of its content, demonstrates how the pharaoh's unrecorded stories piqued researchers' interest. Their inexperienced historical interpretations could have been improved by their inability to decipher hieroglyphs, which made it impossible to depict events chronologically. This mission helped change the Europeans' perceptions of the Middle East, and the scientific mission played the role of a catalyst to help achieve this feat. In France, the publication of Description of Egypt also plays a vital role in assisting the French to understand Egypt. That's pretty much it for video. Don't forget to share your thoughts with us in the comments section. And if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel on your way out. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one.